NJIT makes innovation happen. It also makes entrepreneurs like Anya O'Dwyer. Founder of Innovate, a tech-driven civil engineering and construction management firm, Anya says NJIT is defining the future.
NJIT is extremely important as a hub of disciplines all in one space with all of these brilliant minds. NJIT's role is huge when it comes to defining the future and how, from an interdisciplinary point of view, they have it all there, whether it's the innovation hub, the maker space. NJIT is already creating that collaboration between the disciplines, and you have civil engineers speaking to programmers, speaking to electrical engineers, and together they're creating advancements that we wouldn't have been able to do without those three minds coming together and solving a problem as one rather than solving it in isolation.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Burden LLP Accountants and Advisors presents Tax Chat with Lisa Goldman, partner and leader of Burden's International Tax and Advisory Practice.
If you're a high net worth individual with international investments or a business owner with operations overseas, it is essential to have a tax advisor who knows how to protect your assets on a global scale. Owning and investing in foreign corporations comes with certain tax responsibilities. Burden Accountants and Advisors works with clients to ensure that they understand the intricacies of the global market, maximize the tax opportunities available, and reduce the challenges presented by international tax laws.
If you're a high net worth individual or a business owner, let Burden help protect you, your family, and your business. For more tax chat from Burden Accountants and Advisors, visit burdenllp.com. That's BERDONLLP.com. Burden Accountants and Advisors. We listen, we solve, we do.
Where are today's real testing grounds for the latest innovation? Places where advancements in health, transportation, and business happen every day. Cities. Today, cities lead the way, taking local solves and turning them into global solutions. Now, introducing Bloomberg City Lab, a new platform covering the present and future of global cities. Learn more at bloomberg.com/citylab. Brought to you in partnership with Hyundai.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Tom and Levi.
Tom is the smartest man I know. He's been a professor at two major universities, been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, he told me that he was having problems in his classes. I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. And he was telling them that he was doing it as a favor to them, but I think in reality he just wanted to get out of there. I was really starting to worry because I saw something that's wrong.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me, and my love for him was just immense.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now's the time to talk. Visit
All right, folks, good afternoon. Once again, this is segment number 2 of the Marketplace Reset Show and Jumpstart. And this is segment number 2. Segment number 2, we're going to focus, we're going to do a review focus on the announcement, the recent announcement by Governor Albert Bryan Jr. about the indefinite suspension of the restart of the oil refinery on St. Croix. And, it's the, at least to say that it is a really grave reminder of where St. Croix as a community and what economically the impact to the local economy losing the refinery. The refinery has been a major, if you will, contributor to the economic growth and prosperity of the overall, treasury for the U.S. Virgin Islands, but more directly, in particular for St. Croix, since its creation, and it for almost 50 years before it shuttered back in 2011, 2012, and it shuttered for a couple of years, and it really, the bottom literally fell out from the local economy. There were tremendous job loss, closure of businesses, and we just saw the domino effect of what really happened to the largest single private source of economic output for the territory, but more particular for St. Croix. And here we are now back to that place where I don't think anybody really thought it would happen. For certainly not, in a couple of years. 3 years since it was refurbished and restarted, no one really thought that we would be here, so quickly. But that's the reality. And so on today's show, we're going to take a look at just an overview of the refinery, the news that broke about the refinery. We're going to provide some imagery of the refinery, and we're going to look at what instigated the closure of the refinery, or should I say suspension of the restart of the refinery. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of before we're also going to share the governor's report, his press conference making that announcement. So some of you may have seen it or heard it. And what we're going to do, we're not going to play the entire press conference that he does on a weekly basis regarding COVID and other governmental matters. We're going to air the part of the governor's press conference where he focused on the announcement regarding the Lime Tree oil refinery. And so I want to just kind of take a look. If you can take a look at some of the imagery that you see there, you see an aerial view of the refinery. If you've heard of the refinery, if you've never seen the refinery, what you're looking at right now is a photograph of that refinery and what that refinery looks like. And then what I'd like to do is just take a real quick look at the report by the local media as to the announcement regarding the suspension of the restart of the refinery. And so let's see here. The source reported that they were at the press conference and they had an opportunity to be able to engage the governor directly. I believe before I do that, let me just say welcome to my colleague Terry. Terry has joined us. Let me bring her in. I think she is on the road, but
yes,
we'll take her anyhow we can get her. And the reason why she's important. Hi, Terry. How are you?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good.
This is really an important topic.
Yeah. And the reason why Terry is going to be an important voice to this matter, because when she was working for the small business, the U.S. Small Business Administration, she was during that time, during her tenure, she was involved with the emergency economic response to the federal government, assisting the local government to recover from the closure of the refinery. And so, Terry, I'm sure Terry has, when I broke the news to Terry, she couldn't believe it. She just really couldn't believe that. What are you talking about? How is that even possible? And Terry, we'll hear from Terry in terms of just her, her input, her role working with the SBA as the SBA advocate for the Virgin Islands, and some of the things that they had to do to assist the territory, particularly St. Croix, in that devastating economic blow to the island, loss of jobs and businesses, and the SBA played a big role in helping to assist that in that recovery effort. Anything you'd like to say, Terry, before?
And I'm going to say the SBA is going to probably play an even bigger role in this time around as well. Especially, we're coming out of a pandemic. The island is already in a bad place as far as tourists coming to the island. We had to shut down. And so that, coupled with the fact that the refinery is closing again, and there are going to be no jobs, and around jobs there's homes and food. It's just a lot. The industry, I can see the Small Business Administration Emergency Relief Fund playing another big part in recovery this time around as well. I can definitely see that because it's going to be devastating. And unfortunately, like you said, when you called me, I paused. I was like, what do you mean? And then the numbers, the hundreds of people that will be without jobs, in this economic time, it's really it really is leaves us in disbelief. And so looking forward to hearing more about the story. I did get an opportunity to listen in on some of what the governor had to say around this issue. And again, we're not going to leave with doom and gloom. What we like to do on this show, Anthony, is we like to give nuggets. We like to give information, and we like to direct our listening public to some resources that can kind of help get through this time as well. So, I'm looking forward to today's show.
Absolutely. But let me ask you, Terry, obviously the support and the resources from the SBA was critical to the process of recovery for the Virgin Islands, St. Croix in particular. What are some of the things, obviously 2011, 2012 was when the refinery shuttered. Here we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and the SBA is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, they are, because we just had
in the recovery of the U.S. economy. Now we're not just talking about the Virgin Islands. We're talking about the entire United States, and the SBA is playing a
major role
in helping to recover the economy and help small businesses. But now here we are now, combined with a local economic issue of the shut of the refinery. What was it like back then when you were involved in having to assist the territory in providing, bearing all resources by the SBA? I know you've made many trips to the Virgin Islands. Give us a little insight, a little bit of a background of what that was like when your agency was involved in helping with the territory.
Right. So, as Anthony said, I was the regional advocate for Small Business Administration responsible for the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, New York, and New Jersey. And so one of the things that I had the pleasure of doing is working very closely with the government in the U.S. Virgin Islands, working very closely with the legislators in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then with the Small Business Development Center to assess the problem, and that's going to be a major role of any leader that's coming in right now with this situation. Anthony, is assessing the role of the community around the refinery and what's needed. And then once we were able to get an assessment of what that was and the number of, the amount that was going to be needed, then the government was able to work closely with the emergency relief funding, which is going to have to happen again. But the good thing about right now, Anthony, is that this isn't a new process. this has happened before. There is somewhat of a blueprint of what needs to be done to put things in place.
Good point. Good point. Good point.
Usually when you have things like this happen, it takes time to get it off the ground, including the devastation and natural disaster devastations that happen. And the SBA comes in and give emergency relief funding. This time we know where the pressure points are, right? We know that the economy has been hit hard because of this pandemic. We know that small businesses have been hit hard because of this pandemic. And so understanding that, and then understanding the numbers of loss, and knowing what happened around the first time, we can now just take all of those parts and put them together and help in a faster response effort. So that is major. The Small Business Development Center is huge. You, Anthony, quite frankly, are also a big part of this, because one thing that you were able to do then and that you're doing now is putting a spotlight on this situation and making sure that everyone, all the moving parts, are accountable for its part. You know, the governor came out and he talked about how this experience is going to impact the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Small Business Administration is already there. The Small Business Development Centers are already there in place. And so now it's going to take all of us to do the heavy lifting. So I think one of the main things that we were able to do, we put together a lot of plans around what needs to happen. And now it's time to take that same plan with the devastation that's happening right now and start moving forward the pieces. We're going to have to really shore up the
while Terry's trying to reconnect, where else do you go, or who can anyone imagine or fathom for a second where the Virgin Islands, impacted by two unprecedented Category 5 hurricane, Irma, Maria.
Yeah.
Okay. That happened in 2017. Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to put things
in perspective. In
perspective, right? Create context, timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So the Virgin Islands dealing with two unprecedented Cat 5 hurricane 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Then here we come now with a pandemic, right? But that's not just the Virgin Islands, that's the rest of the world.
The whole world.
A global health crisis, right? So you have the recovery of the I'm not sure, there's a overlapping here of the radio station. Something just came on. Hold on a second.
I hear it.
Yeah. 1 second. Let's see let me if I can tune this down here. Hold a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Had to turn down had to turn the lever down. And so clearly you're talking about a community, and I don't like to stereotype. I don't like to be repetitive. So the word resiliency is tossed around so many times over the past couple of years, with the hurricane, and then of course resiliency with the pandemic. Could you imagine? Now here comes the largest single private sector employer in the Virgin Islands economy, on St. Croix, now going to lay off hundreds of workers.
Yeah.
If there wasn't, or if there is a perfect storm, you couldn't write this. You couldn't write this that type story. Right. Hurricane recovery, not one hurricane, two Category 5 Cat 5 hurricane, a global pandemic, and now the closure of the refinery. Where can you point to? What reference can you give me in history where you've had the conversion of all of these events taking place from an economic standpoint, and a people and a community that has to absorb that blow? Right.
I don't know of any other place in history. And this in the second part of this is the second time that this layoff of this magnitude is happening in the same place. And I think for, yes, I think of the Virgin Islands, you said resilient, but also as tenacious, right? One thing that I know personally, like you said, from my travels back and forth to the Virgin Islands, is the creativity around making sure that you're able to sustain the economy has really showed up in so many ways, right? So for instance, I remember one of the biggest problems for small businesses was mail, getting mail back and forth, the time of delivery of getting their mail, especially for small businesses that were ordering things that they needed to run their business. And the Virgin Islanders, they thought of other ways to kind of get mail on and off island. And one of the things that they did was use a mail service, right? So when we're talking about these huge impacts, especially with the economy, though, I do believe, aside from any assistance that will be given as far as an emergency is concerned, I think that, and I know that the Virgin Islands will come back and will come back better. I think what we need to think about is, who that next employer is going to be. We talk about this a lot on the show, Anthony, about attracting business to the Virgin Islands. We talked about, in some point we were talking about Guyana, attracting business to the Virgin Islands, and then more importantly, sustaining the talent pool. People coming and they're going to these universities, maintaining that talent pool in the Virgin Islands. I think those are going to be two keys to coming back better. Having an employer to come in and fill that space in the Virgin Islands. So attracting a private partnership that comes into the Virgin Islands, into a space where they're able to hire folks, but more importantly, making sure that we're keeping that brain drain that we usually talk about here, Anthony, that we're keeping and sustaining that talent on the Virgin Islands, to take technology to the next level so that we're able to maintain and sustain during times like this. I think that's going to be the key to coming back. And resilience is one thing, being tenacious, but creativity was another thing that I saw the last time around. And I think that this is going to really be the key to the Virgin Islands this time around. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, Anthony.
Yeah, so one was a natural. Two events were a natural disaster, right? Hurricanes, Irma and Maria. Mm-hmm. The health crisis, still to be proven, is believed was obviously the origin was created was in China, out of a lab, right? A laboratory. So one can easily say that was man-made, if we can use that term. And then obviously the closure of the refinery, that is man-made as well. And so with the Virgin Islands, with the closure back in 2011, 2012, that was man-made. And what had to happen was, in terms of what happens, what do you do with the displaced workers?
That's right.
All of the workers that were displaced when the refinery closed, and then obviously the domino effect of the closure.
Of every place around that area.
Exactly. Right. The camp followers, right? The businesses, right? Mm-hmm. The vendors, all the vendors that help to support that. The refinery was responsible for generating $19 billion a year in economic activity.
That's right.
$19 billion a year. Yeah. Because you're talking about the sale of the product, refining the product, and then the sale of the product, and then obviously all of the ancillary, the surrounding support to the refinery, jobs, businesses, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so what had to happen with that was they needed to be a repositioning, a retraining of the workforce. Mm-hmm. And then obviously, like in the pandemic, local businesses got assistance to help them, obviously from shuttering, and to help them to continue to keep their doors open.
They had to pivot. Right.
Exactly. And so it's the same thing. And so the question becomes, while you're going to have people on both sides of the fence, who didn't want the refinery in the first place and are more than happy to see it go. And then there are those that says, well, you can't knock or dismiss the fact that the refinery for decades created the middle class in the Virgin Islands. It created the middle class in Virgin because what it did was it created specialty jobs in the oil industry, in the refinery space. These were high-paid individuals, and so therefore, prior to the refinery, there was the haves and the have-not. Right? The refinery came in and literally helped create the middle class to help elevate families in terms of their income and the quality of life that they have.
That's right.
So these are the kind of socioeconomic impact that we're going to look at. That is going to be the fallout of this. And so the question has then in 2011, 2012, as it is in 2017 and in 2021, what have we done? What have we done to prepare for this isolationist sort of, approach to how we address, the kind of economy that we have? It is a reminder that when you put all your eggs in one basket, you put yourself at risk. Because if you do, it's a lot like in my former life as a banker, Terry. You've heard of mutual funds, right? Mutual funds is the investments that people make or employees make on behalf of their employees, or families invest in mutual funds, right? One of the funds are called Balance Fund, and the reason it's called Balance because what you do, you take an approach. You put money in stocks, right? And in equity. You put money in bonds, which is debt. You put money in commodities. You put money in currency. So when any of those assets do not perform or not performing well, you have a nice spread. You have a nice balance of when one particular asset class is not doing well, that there's that inverse relationship, right?
That's right.
When one asset class isn't working well, the other one is doing better, right? Or driving on a highway, driving on the road. When you're driving on a highway, you have multiple lanes. When one lane becomes congested, you try to then see whether or not there's room for you to maneuver from one lane to the next lane. And so we must have balance even in how we look at our economy and approach our economy. That was my fear. That was my concern when the refinery restarted or came back online, because I what's going to happen? Everybody's going to become complacent again. And then the urgency of looking for alternative or the diversification of the economy was no longer going to be pressing, no longer going to be a priority. Even though we saw what happened when we were so dependent and reliant on a single industry to be the breadwinner, to be that sustainable force for the middle class. And so we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity because between now and September, while the investors are going to try to figure out how they're going to, figure this out, whether or not they're going to be able to get a fresh round of investors to invest in the refinery, or if they don't, part of the contract is they have to demolish the refinery.
Right.
So the demolish, of the refinery is going to represent jobs, tons of jobs to clean up that site and make it a brownfield site. Because obviously it's no longer a refinery and it becomes a brownfield site.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so clearly what we have to, and it's not option, like you said, what's coming up, it's an election cycle that's going to now be the issue of the refinery is going to be an election issue. And whether or not those who are running for public office, whether the legislature or the executive branch, are going to be able to have the ability to say to the people of the Virgin Islands, how do we recover from this? How are we, what is the plan going forward? What is that strategic plan? the short-term plan, the midterm plan, the long-term plan. What is that plan to for once and for all to address what are those opportunities? What are those industries? What are those where do we need to plan and strategically put our efforts to help remove ourselves and are reliant on a single industry?
Yep. And I dare say, Anthony, some of those conversations already took place. I think that the difference now is that with the pandemic, we are positioned a little differently because, of social distancing rules and the need to really sanitize. I think that changes the game a little bit with what can be done. But it's a great opportunity, like you said, like with an obstacle is an opportunity, right? So it's a great opportunity to revisit some of those plans because there were strategic plans, and I'm sure you were in a lot of those because you were part of fixing the problem. And so I think what's going to really happen, like you said, depending on one particular private company has just, it can't be business as usual anymore, so to speak, right? So there has to be a way that creativity of the Virgin Islanders that I know so well will have to step up and create additional opportunities that
All right, Terry's she's gonna hopefully reconnect. She's driving, so her internet connection is going to interrupt a little bit, but she's going to reconnect with us in a little bit. All right, so while we're waiting for Terry to reconnect, what was reported on June 22nd? What was reported on June 22nd at 6 a.m. Monday? Governor Albert Bryan Jr. learned that the Limetree Bay refinery would be shut down, affecting as many as 800 jobs directly and indirectly. What you're looking at the screen that I'm sharing with you is the main entry to the Limetree refinery. So I'm sharing some imagery of it. The first imagery is the overall view of that's the entire, just about the entire view of the panoramic view of the Limetree refinery and terminal. And then again, this slide speaks to the main entrance to the refinery. Then the third slide shows you the man camp. Over 1,000, I think it's 1,100, 1,200 workers lived on campus. Okay, and so when we talk about the loss of 800 jobs, to kind of, there is the direct employment from the Limetree themselves and all of their subcontractors, right? So again, affecting as many as 800 jobs directly and indirectly. It did not come as a big surprise, the governor said at a news conference Monday afternoon. It says here, since May, when the Environmental Protection Agency ordered a 60-day temporary closure of over spills of oil and emissions of foul-smelling chemicals, Bryan said that the government has been trying to line up new investors, but with no luck. The government is also looking for new businesses for the territory, he said. The governor confirmed that 271 employees have been directly terminated and said 500, 600 direct jobs and 100 to 200 indirect jobs, such as delivery services, will also be impacted, as well as several hundred households. He said the government is pursuing the Limetree agreement carefully. And so the images that we're sharing with you is just, again, that's the man camp. You see all the cranes, and that was all of the workforce that was brought in to help refurbish the refinery before it can restart. And then what we're looking at is the incident that took place, in May with the flame and the oil spill spewing out of one of the units for the refinery. And I want to just share with you as well. There's an image also I'm sharing with you, a map of the world. well, not the map of the Americas, and you see Africa on the right-hand side. And you see a central point where it shows you where back then it was called Hovenza, but you see where it says where St. Croix is, and it showed you the distance between, if you were to fly from the Virgin Islands to Europe, to New York, to Jacksonville, to Houston, to Los Angeles, and to Brazil, and to Venezuela and Brazil, as I said. And St. Croix is a centralized location. St. Croix, one of the reasons why St. Croix is so attractive, because it brings a strategic geographical opportunity. Industry-wise, when we talk about where are the opportunities, now we hear a lot about, obviously, tourism is a space we exist, and you hear about heritage tourism, culture tourism, ecotourism. You hear about all these wonderful ancillary things to do that. And so therefore, what outside of our main tourism product, because tourism contributes more than 60% to our gross domestic product, right? So tourism as an industry collectively is the largest output, economic output. But when we talk about the largest employer, the government is the largest employer in the territory. The refinery became the second largest employer in the industry, in the economy. And so clearly, what is that other industry? So clearly, we have an opportunity to be able to venture into very aggressively into technology. We also have the ability to get into other type of green energy, which is green energy, okay? And then then you have the blue economy, okay, which is the marine industry. So those are the three areas. When we want to know where are going to be the opportunities for us to be able, as a territory, as a part of the U.S. in the Caribbean, the technology, renewable energy, green energy, and the blue economy, which represents the marine industry. Those are the opportunities, and if we put our collective minds together, that's where and how we can diversify our economy. And Terry, I know you're having some issues there. I think we lost her. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to stop there, and I'd like to go to the coverage of where we play the governor's press conference. But let's look at what really triggered all this. Here's footage, compliments of the source, VI source, and St. Thomas source. Here is video footage of what created the problem. All right, that is, again, that was one of the units that flared up. It flames were coming from the unit, and it was burning oil, and the oil that was being burnt was going westward, and it affected homes and businesses and schools and other places within the community. And so there was a cleanup to go with that. And of course, the EPA have imposed strong restrictions in terms of the cleanup of the refinery. But let's go straight to the governor's press conference so you can hear what the governor had to say. If you missed it, if you didn't see the press conference, you'll get to hear from the governor. You get to watch it and hear what the governor had to say regarding the refinery situation.
When they had to relocate, the schools closed, and we had so much things that were affected. There are a lot of people who stand to benefit directly and indirectly from the refinery operation. And I'm hoping that we can arrive at a quick resolution to some of these issues that are standing in the way of the restart of refineries. And really get folks back to work. While this is not something that we wanted, it is not something that we hope for, it is certainly something that we are prepared for. This morning, I notified our delegate, Stacey Plaskett, as well as the president of the legislature, Don Fred Gregory. I also met with my cabinet very early this morning and directed them to making sure we prioritize construction and recovery projects for St. Croix and public sector job listings for Crucians to make sure we dampen the impact of the closure. Commissioner Malloy at the Department of Labor is now activating his rapid response teams, which were already dealing with contractors, to assist these individuals with other employment options and/or filing for unemployment benefits. Of course, we are also looking closely at our agreement with Lime Tree Bay and determining the next steps with our legal team. I would also like to add that there's a unified government job fair being conducted in both districts this week, June 22nd at the St. Croix Educational Complex, and on June 24th at the Tutu Park Mall. If there's one thing we have in this territory is a need for talent and a need for employees. So we're going to have to make sure that we get these people back to work quickly. In closing this afternoon, we have somewhat related and better news. Our administration is dedicated to putting Virgin Islanders to work, and the Department of Labor has gone through and executed their contract with ICF that is expected to implement a $9 million workforce training program that we deem skills for today. This program will support the training of over 600 individuals. This includes 400 in construction trades like masonry, electrical, plumbing, and carpentry, 75 in administrative services such as project management and grants management, and another 165 on-the-job training in other industries such as hospitality, healthcare, marine, IT, and cyber security. This is your time to get active and get some skills. We look forward to the outcomes of this and our other workforce development efforts as we prepare our people to participate in the economic opportunities that our administration is diligently creating. We are here for the public, for those people and their families that will be displaced. We are working on new solutions and bringing new streams of income and new manufacturing and other opportunities to the territory every day. We will continue to do so with God's grace and your support. I'll take any questions from the press at this time. Susan Ellis.
Good afternoon, Governor Bryant.
Good afternoon.
And thank you, Susan Ellis, for the source. I'm wondering if you have any kind of preliminary ideas or feelings about how this closure will affect our revenue and the economy in general and the budget.
I feel real confident on the government side in terms of our budget and revenue coming in. We have $584 million in budget makeup from the federal government that we have at our access till 2026. So what my real concern now is on the private sector side with our small businesses, losing all of this talent and these families that will be affected as they look for new opportunities. Hopefully we can get the refinery going again, but people have to eat and they're used to these salaries and they may have to relocate as they did before. The other concern is this is another burden on our unemployment insurance trust fund. This is more money that we're going to have to expend as we pay people for unemployment until there's better situation. The good news is we have 90 days till they're effectively laid off, and then they will probably get a severance, which will take them through October. And then after that, we could take a look at where we can place some of these people and if the refinery will get going. So it's not all doom and gloom. We have some opportunities.
Thank you. And quickly, another question. Do you have any idea how many employees there are for the terminal, for the storage facility?
Yeah, historically, they've been at about 80, 85 people. Inside the refinery, there are about 300 to 400 people. And then about 100 to 200 contractors.
That's for the terminal itself?
The terminal itself is only about 80, 85 people.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Susan. Lasiba, good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Lasiba Knight from the St. Cuevas. Commissioner Encarnacion, I just had a quick question. I was wondering if I can get an update on the status of the vaccine passport work that DOH has been doing.
Okay, very close. We actually were pulling data from the national database today. And so Dr. Ellis and I had a meeting with Director Stout from Immunization. So once we get that data, then I'm hoping that it will be up this week. Today was actually the deadline, but we're waiting for some data to come to us. Then we can start it.
Awesome. And then, Governor, pivoting to the, what's really on people's mind at this moment, the shutdown of Lime Tree. I'm wondering, you are very close to the workings of the refinery, as close as anyone who's not working there, with weekly meetings and whatnot. You speak to the investors. I'm wondering how you would characterize the restart effort. The refinery was delivered almost a year late and $1 billion over budget. And so I'm wondering, what have been your thoughts as this project has gone forward?
Well, construction in the Caribbean is always a challenge, is the first one. We've seen that in the tourism side and trying to get hotels to get up. This was a massive undertaking at $1 billion. There was substantially more damage to the refinery being sitting idle over that time. And then supply chain management was not improved by COVID. They really had some problems getting up to speed. Manpower, remember during last year, we actually stopped them from importing people, which slowed their project down considerably as well in terms of their timelines. And then recreating the incredible work ethic and team that you had at Hovensa when it shut down is next to impossible. You have to bring some people back, certainly, but there were some new people in there that they're trying to train up. Those are challenges. The linchpin here is the EPA, and I'm not saying that they weren't proactive in doing what they did. The refinery was already shut down when they issued their order. But at the end of the day, investors are real leery, not only because what is happening here, but if you remember early in the January, the $9 billion pipeline was shut down in the United States. The way that the EPA approached this, they've only used this way 11 times in their 50-year history, which is severely impacting the abilities of the refinery's ability to raise capital. You need money when you shut down, you're not bringing in any money. You need money to do all those things that the EPA mandated of them. And then you need money to meet your payroll. If investors are not confident that they're going to be able to open up after 60 days, That means another 60, 90, 120 days of closure. They're not willing to go that route. So what we've been trying to do is get some definitive word from the EPA, and they've assured us that they will be fair in the assessment of the refinery and their ability to restart. But certainly the aggressive stance that the EPA has taken since the onset of this administration is troubling, especially to small economies like ours with Black and brown people that will be severely impacted by high-paying jobs that are no longer available.
And then, sir, I just want to ask about your thoughts on the viability of a refinery at that site. Since Limetree has come back online, they were really betting on being able to fill a new niche with the maritime regulations that changed and the sweet crude that they were going to be producing for the maritime industry.
Right.
The demand for that hasn't been anywhere near what was expected. A lot of blame has been pointed at COVID-19 and you know, ports all over the world not really checking for the new fuel standards.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, with a lagging demand on the sweet crude that was supposed to be their, you know, entry point into the market, what are your thoughts on a refinery at the site?
I think the linchpin here is still the ability to operate the refinery. I mean, they had contracts in place that guaranteed the sales of not only their 2-oil and low sulfur fuel, but also of their gasoline and their other products. They had already begun to ship stuff off island. Best case scenario, I think we'll see some kind of restructuring of the debt and the refinery opening under new investors. Worst case scenario, you were stuck with a shuttered facility. But I'm thinking positively, we'll get to the end of this with the EPA. Mr. Regan, who is the administrator for the EPA, has been very transparent in terms of speaking to us about what their deal is, and we just keep emphasizing that, you know, we're a small place. We don't have a delegate, a sitting member or two of Congress. We don't have a state senator. And a lot of times federal agencies seek to bully us because we don't have that and our ability to really extol our weight. So we're looking for just a fair shot at being able to open up the facility and do so in a way that's safe and protects our residents.
And then just finally, I'm wondering how you would have preferred the EPA to have managed or responded to the incidents that have happened at Limetree, because, you know, several of them were severe. One is a little iffy with the smell in the sewer, but, you know, a couple clouds of oil is a pretty big deal. I'm wondering what your preferred response from the EPA would have been.
Well, I mean, the first off is the permit that the violation that they use in order to do the stop shut. First of all, when the last event occurred with the fire, I called the refinery and I told them to shut it down, otherwise you're going to have hell to pay with me. They did. The requirement of the EPA says that the refinery has to be running. The refinery wasn't running when they issued their order. The second one was they were supposed to contact the government. We found out everything from the EPA that the EPA did through the refinery calling us, not the EPA. So I think they could have been a little bit more transparent in terms of working with the local government. Maybe they would have learned that the refinery was already shut down and that we were taking steps to make sure that they would do the right thing. And they could have still produced all of these mandates that they did without having used this particular shutdown method. The third thing is they had to prove that there was some imminent danger to the public. Well, the refinery was shut down already, so there was no imminent danger to the public. So those are the three things really that we don't think we really got a fair shot at. I made sure as governor of the Virgin Islands that we did the right thing and they shut down the refinery, because we weren't going to stand for them guessing around what it is they were doing. The fire was the last piece. We try to be as supportive as possible. We understand about the investors, but the safety of our people is of utmost importance. We shut them down, and they agreed to do it. They've been very cooperative with the EBA. They've actually produced or is in the process of producing everything that they asked them, but they're just not confident that they're going to get a fair shot, and we want to make sure. Now, everything they're telling us, balanced record, is that we're going to get a fair shot at looking at it, but it may be too late. We may have lost, once again, our main cream here in St. Croix and hundreds of jobs. And, 2012 was a bad year. 2020 was a bad one too, and, it's always something, but, this too shall pass and we'll get through.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those forthright answers. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Lipsy. Go ahead on the phone. Hey, good afternoon, Ernest.
Yes, good afternoon. Do you think, I know you spoke at length here relative to the refinery situation. EIG has basically relegated the investment as worthless, as if it has basically given up on the project over there. Are we saying this thing is over? This is the end of oil refinery on St. Croix at the Culture plant?
I would never say that is the end of oil refinery in St. Croix. I mean, you like if you like race cars, you put $200,000 on a race car and the carburetor blows. You don't pack up the car forever. You take another look. You get another carburetor. I think there's plenty of value in the refinery and its placement here. Remember, this new refinery now complies with all the EPA mandates that was set out by the consent decree that shut down the refinery, helped to shut down the refinery in the first place. So you have a compliant refinery. Usually in these matters, some type of debt restructuring, new investors, they have to leverage something in order to get the refinery back up. Nobody wants to see it mothballed. So I think we have a real shot of making a go at it. And certainly we will continue to talk to Lime Tree Bay, EIG, and anybody else that's interested in investing in our infrastructure, because once that money is here, it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, that $2 billion is sitting right on our shores. That's an asset that we have. There's still power plants in there, water, a lot of resources, deep water ports, storage. So, all is not lost. And I don't think it's going to be shuttered. When Governor Mapp originally announced the reopening of the refinery, mentally I gave myself 10 to 15 years of operations. So I'm always thinking about what's next and how to supplement it. Our Catalyst Fund that we're doing as a result of the American Recovery Plan is going to do gap financing for new manufacturers to come to St. Croix, so we can help them get assembled so they could start business. The first part about that is a $5 million that we gave from the vitamin plant that we're using.
All right, so we're gonna stop there. So we've ran out of time. We've come to the end of the broadcast. But you heard it from Governor Albert Bryan Jr. His administration is dealing with the situation. If there's a silver lining in the cloud, is the fact is there's going to be a stimulus economic funding, federal funds that are going to be coming through. That has been coming through from the rebuilding of the infrastructure, from the aftermath of the hurricane, from the pandemic, and of course there will be assistance that will be provided to the helping with those who are going to become displaced with unemployment, and businesses are going to be impacted. They're going to get economic assistance as well. So the jobs that are going to be created in terms of construction jobs, jobs are going to be plentiful. So all is not lost. All right, folks, that's it for me. And thank you so much for tuning into the Marketplace Reset Show and Jumpstart. Until next week, we'll talk.